Welcome to Compassion's 5 C's decision-making process. This PowerPoint training utilizes your workbook. Please have it handy for this training. You can pause the training now to print out the materials if you need to. As we proceed, I'll give you instructions on what to do next. Proverbs 15:22 says, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed." This is the theme scripture for our 5 C's decision-making process. At Compassion, we feel that a team solution recommendation regarding any important decision is most often going to lead to the best decision. That's why we are using the 5 C's model across the organization. At this time, please review the selected scriptures in your 5 C's workbook. After reading the scriptures, please write in your workbook the first thought you have concerning decision-making from a biblical perspective. When we don't make effective decisions or involve and inform the appropriate people, then the effectiveness of our ministry is hampered. Ineffective decision-making and communication can also hurt the morale of our teams and our staff members. Perhaps you've witnessed firsthand the effects of poor decision-making and communication on staff effectiveness and morale. The 5 C's decision-making process can help. Our goal is to provide you with a tool to improve your decision-making and your communication and implementation of decisions. Your effectiveness at work, at home, and in your community will benefit. Our leadership at Compassion wants all of us trained and able to use the 5 C's process to improve our decision-making and communication. Use of the 5 C's process will also help us to live out our Compassion core values more fully. For example, as we read the definitions of such core values as stewardship and excellence, it's easy to see how good decision-making and good communication support these core values. We suggest that you now pause the video for a couple of minutes and carefully read both the front and the back of the 5 C's one-pager. We also suggest that you review the additional resources that are included in the 5 C's decision-making workbook. Welcome back. To help you to understand and apply the 5 C's decision-making process, we've created some videos for you to watch. We've asked Greg Boyer, Compassion's Organization Design and Development Director, to help. Greg will introduce each of the 5 C's. Then we'll show you how that particular C gets worked out in a team meeting. We'll begin with Greg's overview of the purpose and steps of the 5 C's.
Hello, I'm Greg Boyer. I'm happy to be here with you today. Thanks for making time. Today we're focused on decision-making. We all make decisions. We make them in our home life. We make them related to going to college, to choosing a spouse. We make decisions at work. In Compassion, the Organizational Health Survey from 2009 and 2010 say we can do better in our decision-making. Specifically, we need to be able to make better decisions. We need to be able to communicate them better with their rationale. So that's why we're here today, to look at a new model, the 5 C's decision-making model. It's vital for the kids that we make good decisions in our organization and we communicate them well. Let's begin with a summary of the 5 C's. The first C is clarify, which means you're getting very crisp about the problem or issue to the extent that you can write it down and agree on it. The second C is consider, in which we brainstorm our various possible decisions. We actually think of the pros and cons of each one. We use criteria to think about which is the best solution. We have debate, we have constructive criticism, we ask good questions, an inquiry-based approach, and we consider the best decision. Step 3 is choose. Make sure that the decision authority can validate your decision and appoint a person or team to implement the decision. The fourth C is communicate. Communicate means get a good communication plan and implement it so that all necessary folk can hear what the decision was with its rationale. The fifth and final C, the fifth C, is complete. Complete means that you actually make sure that implementation is complete, and after the decision is made and communicated, within a month, you actually step back, do an evaluation process to say, what did we learn? What can we do better next time? How can we make and communicate decisions better for the glory of God? Thank you.
Now, let's watch the 2-minute beginning of the team meeting.
About project. Welcome, my dear colleagues. I am so delighted that you could make it to this meeting today. We have to decide today what to do about Project 325. As you all know, this is the first time that our team has to work on this type of issue. What I would like to propose is that we utilize Compassion's 5 C's decision-making process to help us identify a solution here. But before we do that, let us pause for a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we bow before you today and we thank you for life and for the finished work of your Son, Jesus Christ. We ask, Lord, that you will give us wisdom on this issue that we need to decide on today so that we can give you the glory. We praise you for everything in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, my dear colleagues. Earlier, I sent you the 5 C's decision-making process worksheet. Now, I am not too sure how many of you were able to look at it. Did you have a chance to look it over while you have it?
Yeah, I'm good.
So what's going on with Project 325?
Some major letter writing problems. Their KRIs are in need of a lot of improvement.
Okay, well, I propose that we take a few minutes to read through the 5 C's one-page summary again, so that we, and then also take time to look at the worksheet. Do you have the worksheet? Good. Let's go ahead and fill this out together using this worksheet. Does anyone want to volunteer to take notes for us?
I can do that, Dee. I have my laptop.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I really appreciate that.
After each 5 C's video, I'll ask you to pause the training and do the workbook exercise. Although there are 5 C's in the process, it's the first 2 C's that usually take up the most time in team meetings. Let's watch Greg's introduction to the first C, clarify.
Welcome to step 1 of the 5 C's decision-making process, which is clarify. In clarify, we have 3 little sub-steps. First, be clear on the problem. Work with your fellow decision makers and actually write it down. Be very clear on the problem. Secondly, complexity. Be clear on what level of complexity is involved here. Is this a simple problem that pertains really only to you or your work group? Is it a systemic problem that pertains to other work groups around you? And finally, is it a strategic level of complexity where it affects maybe the whole organization, or it directly relates to organizational beliefs or strategy? Finally, who? Who are the people that need to be involved? Be clear on who the authority is, who ultimately has the decision-making authority. Be aware that we often, however, work by teams, usually teams in Compassion. We work by teams to develop decision recommendations that pass to the authority. The other people that would be involved are stakeholders. Stakeholders are people who have a stake or some vested interest in the decision. The decision will impact them. Finally, we have advisors and experts. These are people who can bring special information, sometimes technical information, that can help us support a better decision. So, welcome to step 1 of the 5 C's decision-making process, clarify. Feel free to use your workbook, get a Word document up, or you can use paper to answer these questions to fulfill this step.
Now let's watch the team as they clarify their decision. This is the longest video segment at 7.5 minutes.
You would notice in this worksheet that the first step in the 5 C's process is to clarify the problem or the issue. There are a few questions here that I see that would help us to clarify the problem. The first is for us to define the problem or the issue, and I ask Joe to summarize the problem we are dealing with.
Here are the facts, as you all know. Our key results indicators for this project indicate that their writing has been bad for 4 months. There's been a number of attempts to help them with this with no results. And it's not really a programmatic issue, but this agreement's crucial to us as a field office and to the sponsors who are receiving their letters late or sometimes not at all.
Good. Now, those are the facts that we currently have. What if we write down the issue as project number 325 is consistently very late in their child letter writing requirements? What about a deadline for this project? Do we have a deadline?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we get this done by the end of the month and set the deadline there.
That's going to be very, very difficult. I don't think it can happen that quickly.
Okay, guys. I've heard that in some field offices that are dealing with this similar problem, they've been able to deal with it meeting a deadline. So for the sake of being good stewards, I would propose that we have a one month deadline at the end of this month.
So does anyone besides Jack see any obstacles to getting this done by the end of the month?
Well, I don't see anyone foreseeing any obstacle here so let's plan to do this at the end of this month. Wendy is helping us take some notes on this process. So let's look at the next step. It's to define the level of complexity for this decision. So what level of complexity do you see that we have here?
This is a systemic problem, in my opinion, because it affects several domains. It's not a strategic problem because it doesn't involve our foundational beliefs or strategies.
Thank you, Justin. You've suggested systemic. I agree. Does anybody here disagree with that? Okay, then so let's accept that the problem here is systemic. I see the next step here. Let's get clear who has the authority to make the decision.
Is it the country director? I mean, we're making a recommendation, but it's ultimately the country director who makes the call, right?
But Dee, you're the program implementation manager. Wouldn't it be your call to make?
I agree with you, but the country director called and asked that I call this meeting so that we all can deliberate on the issue and make a recommended solution to him.
This is a really important decision. Shutting down a project, we really need to do our homework on this one.
You are right, but I just want us to be very clear here. The country director has the authority to accept or to reject our recommended solution. Okay? So I'll pass on our recommendation to him. Okay, guys, so what's our next step here on this 5C worksheet? It is to define the stakeholders, advisors, and experts who would be participating in the decision-making process. So what I'll propose here is that we brainstorm a list of those who will be involved in this decision-making. Okay?
I recommend we interview the project director.
Project director, okay?
What about the denominational rep? They usually show great insight into church problems, and then we need to make sure the paperwork gets done so that the area office and the GMC stay informed.
I'm not sure we've heard the details from the PF. I suggest we invite him to the next meeting.
The PF, cool.
Yeah, what about legal? I mean, are we running into any labor laws at this point?
I can do the research on that and represent legal from this standpoint.
It seems like we have a fairly good list here. Won't you agree?
I don't think we're going to be able to make a year-end deadline based on all those people that we've listed. There's a lot of voices to hear from.
Yeah, well, has anyone thought about the parents, the community, the children? Who's thought about the children? Who's going to represent them?
Well, I'm sure we could talk to the pastor. He's familiar with the community and with the parents, and we could make sure that they all stay informed.
Yeah, I think someone should also talk to the project tutors. They work so closely with the children.
That's an excellent idea.
I see from our 5C process that it's asking us to involve these people. It says the next step is that we should gather information to support our decision-making process.
Okay, good. So let's talk about who is going to be contacting each of these people.
Yeah, who's going to talk to the denominational rep?
That's a good question. I think we need to decide who's going to contact him.
Not me. I had a situation with him last time. Him meaning the denominational representative. He and I don't agree very often.
That's interesting because the 5C process talks about how constructive conflicts can be healthy and helpful in the process.
I think we should just ignore this situation and sweep it under the rug, like we normally do.
Well, we can be sure that whenever significant decisions are being made by a group, there will be conflict.
Yeah, there's been some pretty significant conflict already. I mean, we've tried twice already to get this project to change their problem. I mean, the PF, he's been trying really hard to motivate them, and nothing's happened.
Can we please resolve this issue before interviewing the people?
There's already been some interviews. I mean, this situation isn't new to the staff or to the stakeholders.
So are you saying that we already know where the conflicts are? What the core issues are?
In terms of our agreement, we may already have enough information to make a decision.
Maybe, but maybe not. There might be some need for more work on this. So as far as this constructive conflict goes...
Wait a minute, isn't this process about hearing from everyone that's impacted by the decision? Do we really feel like we've done that yet?
You guys are really hitting on the key issue why the 5 C's are so important. Too often, decisions are made without hearing from those who are impacted. In fact, one of the main reasons why Compassion has adopted this process is to ensure that this doesn't happen. In other words, we need to ensure that we listen to those who are impacted, while at the same time making sure that the decisions are made in a timely manner.
Well, Jack, why don't you take the lead with the denominational representative? That would help me out and put a good word in for me.
Congratulations, team. We've just accomplished the first C in the 5 C's process. Clarify.
At this time, pause the training and do the Clarify workbook exercise. Then resume the video training. Now let's watch Greg's introduction to the second C, Consider.
Welcome to step 2 of the 5 C's process, which is consider. In consider, actually, you're going to be actually listening to the opinions of the advisors and the various experts, and also of the other stakeholders, and also of your team. James says, if any of you lack wisdom, ask for it, and God will pour it out generously. Pray together, ask for wisdom. Then actually also make it very clear to them that you actually embrace constructive conflict. You want to hear their opinions. We want to honor the voices of all in this decision-making process, and constructive conflict that's respectful is healthy. Also that we're using an inquiry-based approach. That means we ask lots of questions. It's really not advocating for a certain position or decision up front. It's asking good questions and listening to the answers from the people. So in the first step, you're actually, on the basis of interviews you've done out with your stakeholders, with advisors and experts, have the team take a look at that data. Based on that good information, then, actually brainstorm with them, what are the potential solutions here? Brainstorm all the potential solutions and debate them. See which one do we think is the best decision solution. If you find you need some additional information that you don't have, you may take some time to actually do additional research, send people out to get the additional information. When you have all your information together, come together and actually choose a top solution recommendation. The recommendation that you think will be the best decision that you can pass on to the decision-making authority. Before you pass it on, though, do a risk assessment. Just check. What are the risks here? What are the personal risks? What are some financial risks? What are some of the potential risks in the organization? And if it seems to be still that the decision is something you want to pass on to the authority, then indeed do that. Pass it on to the decision-making authority.
About 2 weeks later, the team met again after doing their interviews. Let's see how the team considers in the decision-making process. This video is about 6 minutes long.
Welcome back, guys. I trust that you had a very wonderful weekend. We are reconvening today to look at the non-compliance of Project 325. We happen to have amongst us today Luis, our partnership facilitator. And Luis, we want to welcome you to this meeting.
Thanks for including me in this. I appreciate this.
Okay, you're welcome. To help Luis get up to speed, want to inform you that in our last meeting, we dealt with the first C, which was clarify the issue. So we clarified what the issue was, and we invited, we came up with the names of stakeholders, experts, and we interviewed them. Today, what we want to do is to look at the second C of the process. We want to identify, debate, and discuss what those options are so that we can know what the potential solutions would be.
In my opinion, I think we have 3 possible solutions here. One is to put the project on suspension immediately. A second option is to just continue it and hope that they get the changes made. A third, though, is to take a formal attempt at remediation where we give them specific things to change by specific dates.
Wow, those are very good potential solutions. Do you guys agree with those? Or?
Yes.
Does anyone have any other option that we can consider? So then, let's accept these 3 options and consider the pros and cons of each of them.
You know, I'm really concerned that we've tried to get them to correct these same problems 2 times before, and it hasn't worked. To me, there's already some hurt feelings around this. From the research I've done here, there's already some lines drawn between the project director and our partnership facilitator. Luis, why don't you help us to understand that?
Absolutely. First, there's a few things that I probably would like to share with you. I know that the project has been consistently late this last 4 months, but there's a few things that you probably need to be aware of. First, we have tried to teach them some of the systems that other projects are using, yet they have had a lot of turnover in their volunteers. So they're having a hard time really understanding how the systems work, and I think that's part of the reason why the project director is a little upset. Because we're asking for all these results, yet I don't feel like they have had enough time and support from us and training so that they can understand how to do all the letter writing. Personally, I really would like to spend some more time trying to spend some time training with them and probably rearrange my schedule so I can visit them a little bit more often.
Okay. Well, it seems like there is full support for this remediation as a top solution. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
All right. So this would mean that we'll need to specify, make it very clear, the remediation requirements and deadlines.
And then, of course, we can provide additional training and support from our side of the equation.
So does anyone have any problem with us providing, let me say, 1 or more opportunities for these guys to meet our requirements?
Yeah, it's a good thing that they have another chance to be successful.
That is true, right. So in our 5Cs process, I see there's a question that has to do with us assessing the risks. So what are the risks that we have?
If you don't put a time frame on it, then you risk alienating our sponsors who are waiting for letters from their children for a few months.
I also think we avoided a big risk by not ignoring the denomination. If we would have just shut down the project immediately, I think that would have not been received well by the denomination in general.
Another risk is that since we're providing training, we're going to have to spend a lot of time and money to do that. Revamping our training for letter writing is not a small deal.
You know, in my opinion, if that's a risk for us to get better at training and supporting our projects, then that's a good risk, and it's worth our investment.
Those are good points. Are there any other risks? So it seems like we're all in agreement that there are no other risks. So what I will do is that the next steps in the 5Cs process is for us to recommend our solution to the decision-making authority. And this is what I would recommend to the country director when he returns. Are we all in agreement? Yes. Okay, so it seems like we are done with the second C called consider, unless he doesn't, of course, validate or accept our recommendation.
When do you expect him to get back to us about the recommendation?
He'll get back to us as soon as he gets back because of our time frame. Thank you all for coming. This concludes our meeting. We'll reconvene once the country director gives us his decision. The 5 Cs process has been very helpful to us. We've just finished the second of the 5 Cs.
We've clarified.
And we've considered it.
And the question is, will we be chosen?
At this time, pause the training and do the Consider workbook exercise. Then resume the video training. Now, let's watch Greg's introduction to the third C, Choose.
Welcome to the third C of the 5C decision-making process. That stands for choose. Choose means that you've handed off your recommended solution to the decision-making authority and they get to choose. They'll either validate the recommendation, and it's a choice then, or they will actually veto and say, you know, we don't accept that decision. And then in that instance, you would go back to the second C process of consider. You'd back up one step, reconsider your options once again. But if your decision-making authority validates the decision recommendation, then the last step is to simply appoint the right team or the right individual to fully implement the decision. And there you have it. Step 3, choose.
Was the team's solution recommendation chosen and approved? Let's find out in this 1-minute video.
Good news, team. Our recommended solution has been chosen. The decision has been made. Congratulations. We are amongst the chosen. Yeah, and guess what? The country director said that since I'm the program implementation manager, I should see to it that this project is implemented. And I have accepted this responsibility.
As if you had a choice.
At this time, pause the training and do the Choose workbook exercise. Then resume the video training. Communicating well is essential to the 5 Cs process. Greg tells us about the 4th C, Communicate.
The 4th C is communicate. Congratulations, you've made a good decision in the first 3 steps, the first 3 Cs of the 5 Cs model. You've clarified, you've considered, and you've facilitated the choice. So now we have the 4th C, which is communicate. And communication is so important, and to assist you in that, there is a communications plan template in your workbook. So I recommend you go there. That will help you actually identify who needs to be communicated to, the major messages, when the communication should be made, and how. So, you know, it's very important to also include in that how the rationale. Many times we don't clearly communicate rationale in our organization, and it's so important. I think of Proverbs 29:18. It says, where there is no vision, the people perish. People need to know why we made the decision, where the decision is going to lead us to. That will give them the vision. So, congratulations, you're now completing step 4 of the 5C process, communicate.
Now let's watch the team brainstorm how to best communicate their decision in this 2-minute video.
Okay, Mr. Program Implementation Manager, how are we going to communicate and complete our decision in keeping with the 5 Cs in an effective way?
So what do you all think? Many decisions do fail at the implementation stage, and I do not want this to happen here. So how are we going to avoid poor communication?
Well, for one thing, we do need to have communication with the church and with the denomination. Luis, any suggestions how to do that well?
Well, we need to convey clearly to them how is it going to help them. Not only our rationale, but also how is this going to be of benefit to them.
I agree. Our own compassion surveys say that oftentimes we don't explain rationale well, so we really need to do it well here.
So we agree then, a key part of our plan for communicating the remediation decision to this project involves Luis rearranging his schedule so that he can spend extra time with the project.
That sounds like a good plan to me. I really appreciate the extra time that I can spend with them.
At this time, pause the training and do the Communicate Workbook exercise. There is a communications plan template in your workbook. You can use this template to prepare your communications plan. Then resume the video training. Now let's watch Greg on how we can complete the decision-making process.
Hello, welcome to the fifth C, the fifth and final C of the 5C decision-making process, complete. To complete the process, we need to do two things. First, to make sure that it is properly implemented. So I recommend that it actually be tracked in a team where people are actually accountable to make sure that it's implemented according to plan and according to the communications plan. The second thing to do is to actually, after the communication is made within 1 month, to actually use the template and go and do an after-action review. That form actually will help you to identify what went well with the decision-making process, what did not go so well, what you do differently next time. Also, it helps you identify any kind of learnings, and also what are some undone steps. What are some things that are still left to be done? When that after-action review is done, then you will have completed all 5 C's of the 5 C's process. Congratulations. And what are they again? Step number 1 is clarify. That's when we got crystal clear and wrote down what the problem or issue was. Step 2, consider. We considered our options. Step 3, a choice was made and validated by the decision-making authority. Step 4 was communicate, to make sure that a communication plan was developed and followed, so communication was thorough with rationale. And finally, the 5th step we just reviewed, complete, is to make sure that the decision is implemented properly and that we actually used an evaluation process to see what we could learn so we can continue to get better and better at decision-making and decision communication in compassion. Thank you for joining me. God bless.
Did the team make the right decision? They will never know for sure unless they do the 5th C, complete. Let's watch the team plan to complete their decision. This video is about 1.5 minutes long.
This last step says that we should evaluate the decision and the decision-making process. In terms of completing this decision, I propose that in next month's meeting, we review if this was a good decision and what progress we've made with the implementation. Is this okay with everyone? Thank you so much for an effective 5 C's decision-making process. I think that this will be developmental for the church and will help us to attain our desired outcomes. So thank you very much for participating in this very good process.
How about that? Compliance with a touch of compassion. I love that.
This process, guys, is complete.
At this time, pause the training and do the complete workbook exercise. There is an after-action review template in your workbook. You can use this template to imagine and write down the results of your after-action review. When you've completed all the workbook exercises, you can resume the video training. Congratulations! You have completed your first application of the 5 C's decision-making process. You've applied it to a real, recent decision-making situation. Now ask yourself this question. Do you think the earlier decision or its communication would have been improved if you could have applied the 5 C's process to it? If your answer is yes, that's great. We encourage you to print out the 5 C's one-pager and to take it to meetings where you can use it to support decision-making processes. Finally, the last step of the learning process is to take the 5 C's quiz in the learning management system. If you get some answers wrong, don't worry. The system will show you the correct answers. The quiz isn't graded or even on a pass-fail basis. You simply need to complete it. We hope your new understanding of the 5 C's will aid you in decision-making and communication, at work and even at home or in your church. The Lord is pleased when we make effective decisions that are supported by good counsel and the input of good advisors. Proverbs 15:22 says, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed." May the Lord bless you as you apply your new decision-making skills using the 5 C's.